Your circle determines how far you go in life. And most men have never stopped to think about whether the right people are actually in theirs. That one blind spot costs more than most men realize. I know because I'm still working on this myself. And just getting more intentional about it in my spiritual life alone has already made a big difference. So in this video, I'm breaking down the 4 people every man needs in his life. And by the end, you'll know who is missing from your circle and how to find them. The first person every man needs in his life is a Paul. Now, who is a Paul? In the Bible, Paul had a relationship with a young man named Timothy. And in that relationship, Paul was everything a young man could ask for in terms of guidance. Someone further ahead who knew Timothy personally, who spoke into his specific situation, who didn't just tell him what to do, but showed him how to live. 2 Timothy 3 verse 10, Timothy says, "You know what I teach and how I live, and what my purpose in life is. You know my faith, my patience, my love, and my endurance." That's not a teacher-student relationship. That's a father-son relationship. And a lot of guys, especially guys who didn't have strong male figures growing up, are missing exactly this in their lives. Someone who knows them specifically, who sees their potential and speaks to it directly, who challenges them, not just affirms them. So when I say you need a Paul, I mean you need someone like that. Someone further ahead of you, not just in age, but in wisdom, character, and experience. Someone who knows you, who speaks into your situation, your blind spots, your calling, not just general advice. Now here's something most guys get wrong when it comes to finding a Paul. You don't go looking for a mentor and demand one. You become someone worth mentoring. Paul chose Timothy because Timothy already had a good reputation. People spoke well of him before Paul even selected him. So before you go looking for a Paul, ask yourself honestly, am I the kind of person a Paul would actually want to invest in? Because a Paul can only speak into your life occasionally. He's not in your daily life. And that's exactly why the second person is just as important, which is a Jonathan. Now, who is a Jonathan? In the Bible, Jonathan was David's closest friend. And what made their friendship remarkable wasn't just that they got along well, it was the depth of commitment behind it. 1 Samuel 18 verse 1 says, "Jonathan became one in spirit with David and loved him as himself." That's not a casual friendship. That's a covenant. And here's what makes Jonathan's story so powerful and so specific. Jonathan was the crown prince of Israel. The throne was his by birthright. And yet, when he recognized that God had chosen David to be the next king, he didn't fight it. He aligned himself with God's plan. He gave David his robe, his armor, his sword. He handed over the symbols of his own position to the man who would take his place. Now here's what is important to understand about this. Jonathan's friendship with David was real. Genuine love and care between them. But what made that friendship capable of that level of sacrifice was that it was rooted in something deeper than the friendship itself. It was rooted in God. When you root a friendship in God, you can release things others would fight to keep. And 1 Samuel 23 verse 16 says, "Jonathan went to David at his lowest point and helped him find strength in God." Not strength in himself, not strength in their friendship, in God. That's exactly what a Jonathan does. He doesn't just make you feel better, he points you back to God when everything feels like it's falling apart. So when I say you need a Jonathan, I mean you need someone like that in your life. Someone in the same season as you, who knows what you're actually going through because they are going through it as well. Someone close enough to your daily life to actually know what's happening, not just someone you update every few weeks. Someone whose friendship is rooted in God, not just in mutual benefits or good times. Now, here's the most important thing about a Jonathan. Don't just look for one, be one. So before you ask, do I have a Jonathan? Ask yourself, am I being a Jonathan to someone? A Paul speaks into your life from ahead. A Jonathan walks beside you daily. But there's a third person most guys completely overlook. And it might be the one that stretches you the most. But before that, if you've gotten value from this video so far, I'd appreciate it if you could hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this. The third person every man needs in his life is a Timothy. Now, who is a Timothy? Timothy was the young man Paul poured into, the one we talked about in the first row. But here's the thing, Timothy didn't just receive from Paul. He eventually became someone who poured into others. 2 Timothy 2 verse 2 says, "The things you have heard me teach, entrust this to faithful people who will be able to teach others also." The wisdom Paul gave Timothy wasn't meant to stop at Timothy. It was meant to multiply. And that's exactly what a Timothy in your life represents. Someone behind you in the journey who you are actively pouring into. Not because you have everything figured out, not because you are an expert, but because you are a few steps ahead. And those few steps matter to someone who hasn't taken them yet. Here's why this matters than most guys realize. Most guys think about what they can receive, a Paul who speaks into them, a Jonathan who walks with them. But a Timothy flips that entirely. And here's what's interesting. Having a Timothy doesn't just benefit them, it changes you. Because when you pour into someone, you have to actually live what you say you believe. You can't tell a Timothy to be disciplined and then not be disciplined yourself. You can't tell him to pursue God and be going through the motions yourself. A Timothy holds you accountable without even trying to. And there's something else worth noting. Paul's relationship with Timothy gave him purpose and endurance even through his hardest seasons, including his imprisonment. Having someone you're responsible for gives you a reason to keep going, even when it's hard. So when I say you need a Timothy, I mean you need someone like that in your life. Someone younger or earlier in their journey who is genuinely hungry to grow. Someone faithful with what they've already been given. Someone worth investing your time and energy in. And just like with a Paul, you don't just find a Timothy. You become the kind of person a Timothy would want to learn from. Because the same way Paul looked for someone with a good reputation before investing, your Timothy will be watching how you actually live before they decide whether what you have is worth receiving. A Paul pours into you, a Jonathan walks alongside you, a Timothy receives from you. But the fourth person works completely differently from all three. And most guys are either ignoring this one entirely or consuming it carelessly, which is a Solomon. And this one is different from the other three. Those are all personal relationships. People who know you, work with you, and learn from you. A Solomon is different. In the Bible, Solomon was the wisest man who ever lived. When God offered him anything he wanted, wealth, power, long life, Solomon asked for wisdom. 1 Kings 3 verse 9, he asked God for a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. And God gave it to him. Much of what we know as the book of Proverbs is attributed to Solomon. Wisdom addressed to his sons, to future generations, to people he would never meet personally. And that's exactly what a Solomon in your life represents. A voice whose teaching shapes how you think without a personal relationship. A pastor whose sermons you listen to consistently. A book that changed how you see the world. A teacher or creator whose content you've absorbed deeply over time. Now, here's what makes Solomon's story particularly powerful for this role. Solomon was the wisest man who ever lived, and he didn't fully live by his own wisdom. He had 700 wives. He accumulated wealth beyond measure. He drifted from God in his later years. And yet, the wisdom he wrote down in Proverbs has shaped millions of lives across thousands of years. Now, what does that mean for you? It means you can receive wisdom from someone's teaching even when their life wasn't perfect. You can learn from what they got right and from what they got wrong. But it also means this, and this is the caution with a Solomon. Knowledge without application is dangerous. Solomon knew better. He possessed wisdom in the ways of God and still didn't fully live it. So a Solomon in your life isn't just about consuming good content or listening to great sermons. It's about actually applying what you receive. Because here's the thing about a Solomon relationship. It's one directional. They don't know you. There's no personal accountability built in, which is exactly why a Paul, a Jonathan, a Timothy matters so much. They provide the personal accountability that a Solomon relationship by nature cannot. A Solomon without a Paul, a Jonathan, a Timothy is just consumption without transformation. So here's what to be intentional about with your Solomon. Be selective about whose teaching you consistently allow to shape your thinking. Not everyone with a platform deserves that kind of access to your mind. Filter everything through scripture and don't just receive, apply. Because the wisdom of a Solomon is only as valuable as what you do with it. And with all four in place, a Paul, a Jonathan, a Timothy, and a Solomon, you are not just building a circle, you are building your unfair advantage. And here's the thing, you don't need to have all four perfectly in place right now, but you do need to be intentional about building towards them, because your circle doesn't just happen, you build it deliberately over time. And if you enjoyed this one, YouTube thinks you enjoyed this one as well, so check it out. Remember, the path is yours to walk, and as always, I'm in your corner rooting for you.